What an incredible night around Major League Baseball tonight. Welcome into MLB Hot Stove Daily. My name is Michael. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you are new here to the Upside. Follow us on X at Upside us and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. But what a great night around Major League Baseball. The Silver Boot Series got off to a great start between the Rangers and Astros. Cody Bellinger goes off for the Yankees. Cal Raleigh, absolutely the best power hitter we've had in a first half of a season since Barry frickin' Bonds. This is a great time in Major League Baseball, and what a night to enjoy some great baseball out there with you guys. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe, and let's get into some of the headlines. We'll start with the Silver Boot Series. The Rangers are pitching DeGrom and Eovaldi to round out their first half of the season. Some ups and downs for them. They get things going there down in Houston, and Lance McCullers continues to struggle at home there. They need to get Yordan Alvarez back to kind of get this offense going, but Bryce Matthews gets the call-up and gets his Major League debut for the Astros today. Struck out his first 3 plate appearances, finally got some contact with the ball late in the game, but flew out to left, still looking for his first hit. But what some great baseball we saw today. Cody Bellinger absolutely torching his former team in the Chicago Cubs. I'm sure, Sarah, you had a great time watching that as both a Cardinals fan, seeing the Cubs have some issues with their former player, Cody Bellinger, and as a Yankee fan, watching Bellinger go off. So, I'm sure you had a lot of fun. Thank you for that $2. Really do appreciate that, Sarah. Ethan, Rangers' big move coming. Honestly, I've told you guys for the past 3 weeks, with as competitive as Bruce Bochy and Chris Young are, as many holes as we see on this team, as underperforming as the offense had been, that this is still going to be a team that adds here at the deadline. Now, a big move at this deadline, I think, is going to be in air quotes. I don't think there's going to be anybody that's earth-shattering that's going to be moved from pretty much any team out there. I'd love to be proven wrong. I think the biggest moves we'll see are going to be guys that are pricey relievers. Maybe a Joe Ryan gets surprisingly dealt. We saw the big move, of course, with Rafi Devers going to the San Francisco Giants. And unless the Red Sox decide to sell here at the deadline, which I find extremely unlikely at this point, say they decide to move on from an Alex Bregman if they can't get a long-term extension done, Aroldis Chapman, other pieces like that, maybe even a Jarren Duran. I think those are probably the biggest pieces that might surprise us. But I don't think we're going to see any, organizational shifts type of a trade. We're not going to see, the Adrian Gonzalez, the David Price, the Carl Crawford deal. Anyway, that sent those pieces to the LA Dodgers to clear off the Red Sox payroll. We're not going to see those types of moves that shake up the entire landscape of baseball at this trade deadline. But we're going to see plenty of other moves. We're going to see several starters move, several guys who I would classify as a 2 or 3 starter. I think that market will be robust this year. I think you're going to see a lot of guys in the Taylor Ward category as far as outfielders who might be available. Ryan O'Hearn on the offensive side, those types of names. As far as elite closers, we're talking Johan Duran from the Minnesota Twins, maybe Emmanuel Clase, who could very well be the best closer in baseball right now, or at least over the last couple of years anyway. I think he's has a very strong case to be in that to get that acclaim, but he might be one of the biggest pieces that does move. But you did mention Cody Bellinger, Sarah. What a night he had. I believe he hit, 3 home runs? Let me go ahead and pull up the screen for you guys. Because I am quite curious. I think he is he at 3? Yeah, Bellinger did hit 3, and all of them were 2-run shots. That's nice. 6 runs off of his bat, 11-0 shutout for the Yankees. Putting it to the Cubs there as their issues with their pitching staff continue. No surprise there. Surprised Flexen has that low of an ERA, honestly. Ethan, I always say 50 wins before the All-Star break and you are a playoff team. If the Rangers sweep the Astros 49, is close enough at this point. Yeah, I would still say they would say they themselves left a lot of meat on the bone for the first half this year. That just means you're going to have to push even harder in the second half if you're the Texas Rangers. Michael, you're awesome. I love watching your content. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. Really do appreciate the endorsement there. Mark, Texas needs to try to add Duran and Ryan from the Twins. I think Duran is a lot more likely. I think Ryan would be extremely unlikely right now unless you move a guy like Wyatt Langford. I just don't think that the Rangers have the trade assets to get him otherwise. I would think it'd be extremely foolhardy for them to move on from a Sebastian Walcott in their system either. The Giants are trying to blow this game. Well, let's look at the score real quick. Welcome back, Ocean View. Appreciate you joining us once again. Giants 8-7 right now as the Dodgers try to end their 6-game losing streak I believe they're on right now. Rodon was awesome too. Well, yeah, I mean he shut out the Cubbies. Mark, know the cost would be high, but what about Bratt and Osuna and one more piece? What it would take to get it done? Maybe Young. For Duran, you would need at least one more piece, like a Young. Now, if you're talking Ryan and Duran, you're nowhere close. Right? Remember, Ryan's value is around the 70 mark. You're talking Bratt at around maybe 2 to 3. You're talking Ozuna around 7 to 8 on the high end. You're talking Young at 8 to 10 on the high end. Even if you put all of those pieces in the deal, I think you're still short of Duran. I think you're far short of Ryan. But taking back the money of Carlos Correa, who did limp or who had to be assisted off the field today after he was basically taken out by the helmet of Tommy Pham on a hard hit double he was thrown out trying to stretch a single into a double. Anyway, in the Twins game earlier. It sounds like he's going to try to play tomorrow, but likely will be held out as a precaution. Another player who's pulled today, Jake Berger, sounds like he will be back on the field tomorrow for the Rangers as well. But those aren't the only big things that we saw around the baseball world today. Cal Raleigh. Let me go ahead and pull up the Mariners game real quick for you guys. They were taking on the American League leading the Detroit Tigers and they put a whooping on them, 12-3. And yes, they put a 7-burger on them in the ninth inning. A grand slam by Cal Raleigh certainly did help in that regard. In fact, he hit 2 home runs today, 5 RBIs. But look at that OPS, over 1,000. He's just having a truly fantastic year. In fact, his home run total is, 38, 39 right now? I think he's at 38. Yeah, he's at 38. He's got 2 more games to go. Do you guys think he gets to 40 by the All-Star break? I think it's going to be darn close. Austin Riley got hurt for the Braves. That sucks. Pull up the Braves game real quick. I thought he could have been a sneaky, interesting name here at the deadline, as if the Braves decided to trim some payroll, get themselves some really nice prospects in their system. They could get a haul for him. They don't even have it in the highlight package. I was hoping we could see it on there. Let me pull up MLB Trade Rumors, see if they have any information on any of these. Oh yeah, the Rays did release Eloy Jimenez. I did see that one early. Doesn't look like they have too much on this site right now. A lot of guys changing in and out of the All-Star game of who might ultimately go and play. I mean, it's kind of comical how many names have been nominated to go at this point. Understandably, some guys are going to be performing. Like, for instance, DeGrom's going to be pitching on Saturday. Does he really want to be pitching on Tuesday? So Texas really has no way of getting Ryan. Well, let's go ahead and pull it up since you were mentioning him there. I just don't see the Rangers trading Langford. As much as I think it would make sense if they're trying to go all in for this year and next year, I think Langford just has too much value for what the Rangers are trying to do right now and into the future. I just don't see them really moving him unless they're really bowled over by an offer. The offers that we made and kind of came up with the other night might equal out, in the grand scheme of things. But I think they'd need even more than that to really pull the trigger on a deal like that. 20 days from the deadline. Yeah, I believe we are. All right, so just to kind of see what his number is at right now. Looks like they downgraded it just a hair down to 68.3. So if you just do Ryan and Duran, those 2 pieces alone get you to 87.9. Even if you took out Duran, you're still at 68.3. And then you look at what you could give up if you're the Rangers. You're not giving up Walcott, Langford, Carter, probably not Rocker, Smith, Garcia. I mean, you could throw in this deal, but I don't see a reason why they would want to include him in this deal. Rosario would probably be your headliner. You're hanging on to Leiter. You're not moving Seager. You're not moving Castillo. You're really going to try to hold on to more, but say you even do include him in this deal. Say you include Young. Say you include Dreiling. Say you include Drake, who's having a great year. And say you even include Osuna as well. How many pieces is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you're still not there. There's a rumor the Cards might trade Nootbaar. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at that one real quick as well. What would his value be on the market? $25, 2 years left. They do have a lot of outfielders anyway. They always seem to have a glut of them. So say they did include him. He'd be a nice bat this year. What are his numbers this year? For Lars Nootbaar. 12 homers, 228 average. OPS of 716 on base percentage is really nice. And hitting at around a 250 rate for the last couple of weeks here. Solid. Okay. With a couple years of control, he's probably too pricey for most teams for what the Cardinals are going to want in return for him. But say he gets them a starting pitcher that they're needing at the deadline this year, a controllable starter with a couple years left on their deal. That'd be kind of interesting. A team that would kind of be looking to buy here on a player that could be a part of their future. The Mariners make a lot of sense. So if you're looking for a starter back this year and next, you could go Sloan. I think Logan Evans would be a nice add as well. If you're looking for more of a higher end piece, they've been connected to Logan Gilbert for a very long time, but I don't think they would deal one of their top 3 starters right now. I think Wu really has really established himself as one of that elite top 3. We came into the year expecting Kirby and Gilbert to be their 1-2, but Wu has been even better. He's every bit worth the price of admission right now. Joe Ryan is not that good. He's had a good year, but he's not no 69 surplus. He is that good. He's pitching to what, a 2.76 ERA. Do I think he's Randy Johnson in his prime? No, but he is a darn good player. Uncle Ted, Yvonne, J.J. Quinn, and Joe Ryan. Yvonne, J.J. and Quinn for Joe Ryan, Willie Castro, and Griffin Jacks. You're not getting Weatherholt for Joe Ryan. If the Cardinals are going to do that type of a trade, you'd need something different there. Mariners would be good. Answer yes. Look at his K per 9. I don't really care about K per 9 anymore. The years of caring about K per 9 were about, 2-3 years ago. To me, the end-all be-all is, do you get outs, period. Are you effective at getting outs? Is it repeatable? Is there a big change as far as your ability, to go from one start to another? K per 9s are nice. DeGrom in his prime was, really high up there on K per 9, and that's when he was really focusing on it. Right now, DeGrom is about every bit as good as he was at any time with the New York Mets. Maybe not as good as on the strikeout department, but he's not trying to strike everybody out right now. He's trying to make sure he gets through the season healthy, and he's doing it just as effective by getting every out that he needs to right now. K per 9 is everything? No, thank you. Strikeout percentage minus walk percentage is everything. That's more a stat about control. So if you're able to control the strike zone a little bit better, that makes a little bit more sense to me for what you'd want to look for. But to me, you have to take a bunch of different numbers into account here. Can you still pitch high in the zone? DeGrom still can. All right, let's go ahead and make some trades here. Let's have some fun. If we did make one with the Mariners, what would we try to do? Remember, they're looking for starting pitching. I don't think they're trading any of their top 3. They're not really worried about money at this point. I don't think they're looking to trade pieces out of their rotation. But say you include a Sloan and an Evans. Evans goes into the Cardinals' rotation right now. Sloan is a piece for the future. I think that would be a deal that the Mariners would be the quote-unquote buyer in this scenario, getting the better, more proven player in Nootbaar to help out their offense. You have an outfield that includes a Rosarena, Rodriguez, and Nootbaar. And you're giving up a 5th, 6th starter right now and a future starter in Sloan. I would probably do this deal, especially with 3 years of control left on Gilbert, and Wu has 4 years. DeGrom, Molly, and Eovaldi, all better than Joe Ryan, period. I wouldn't go that far. I would say DeGrom and Eovaldi are right. I would say DeGrom is better than Ryan. I'd say Eovaldi and Ryan are close, but I'd probably give the nod because of the postseason experience to Eovaldi. But I would put Joe Ryan over Molly. That's never going to happen, Uncle Ted. Luis Robert and Hauser for Lazaro, Montez. Montez is fantastic. You're not going to get him unless they're getting a truly dominant player. We're talking a player like a Wyatt Langford centerpiece type of a move. The kind of the trade that we were proposing the other night in our live. If the Rangers did decide to sell here at the deadline and they were looking to get a couple of pieces for this year and get a future piece, that's the only way I think they're trading Lazaro Montez. I think he is the corner outfielder of the future once once his contract is over. I think he's going to be on that big league club and playing in that spot once that deal is over. Mark, what about Doval from San Francisco to Texas for the closer? Too much for Texas to give up? Honestly, I don't think so. I think that's fairly close. Robert is not Langford. All right, Ted. Let's get back over here. So you're asking about Doval from the Giants. Come on, computer. There we go. To the Rangers. What would it cost to get him? Doval. He's only 3.2. That's very gettable. They have been rumored to be looking to move him at different times in his career. You're saying he's 750 max? You're kidding. Get out of here with that, Ted. You ain't even close on that one. All right. So, 3.2. That would be a very gettable number. I think if you included a guy like a Brat as a centerpiece and then a throw-in piece around a 1, say you did Uremi Cabrera, makes some sense. I think that could get it done if you're looking for Doval. Do I think the Giants would do this deal? Probably not. Do I think the Rangers would do this deal? I think they would take him as a flyer. Joshua, welcome in. Appreciate you coming back. Yankees did beat up on the Cubbies today, 11-0. Let's go ahead and pull up our scoreboard once again, see what these games ultimately look like. We talked a little bit about the Rangers already. 7-3 winners over Houston. Diamondbacks, Angels currently tied. As a Rangers fan, I can already tell you who I'm rooting for. Kenley Jansen on the mound in the 9th. Blue Jays looking to get back in the winning ways. 7-3 right now over the A's. No surprise there because, again, we told you when you get into the summer months, that ball's going to start flying out of there. And pretty much every time you see the A's play a game right now, you're going to see at least, 4 or 5 runs on the board on the low end, average being around 7, a high game being around 10 or 11. I think that's probably the norm right now for the A's, not necessarily because they're pitching, but primarily because of the ballpark that they're playing in. The ball's just going to fly. Rangers calling up Rowdy? I don't think so. I mean, if Berger goes down, I could see that, but I doubt it. You saying that's what they're doing right now? I don't see them doing that right now. I mean, only if, say Berger's injury is more serious, they go and check him out tonight and give him the MRI or whatever, and they say, hey, you've got a sprained ankle, go ahead and take the All-Star break. Maybe we'll call up Rowdy Tellez and see what he's got. I could see them doing something like that, but I doubt it. Would you rather keep Drake or Brad if you're Texas? Good question. I'd probably keep Drake between the two. Yeah, but he said he's fine after the game and is looking like he'll be in the game tomorrow. But again, the medical people will decide that first, and then Bochy will decide if he wants to set him, go ahead and let him rest up with the All-Star break. No need to push the guys, all those kinds of things. To me, the Rangers really need to capitalize on these last 2 games with DeGrom and Eovaldi on the mound. Even if you split, I think that'd be a good thing for the Rangers. You win the series if you do that against the Astros, and you go into the into the All-Star break with some momentum. And we've seen Chris Young at the All-Star game in years past, on the Sunday before the All-Star game, get a little active on the trade market. So we'll see what happens. He needs sleep. He's heck. Yankees and Cubs trade. You want me to do a Yankees and Cubs trade? We can go ahead and do that one, I suppose. It's rare you see a trade between contending teams, especially top of their division, like the Cubs are right now. You take Laviolette if you're the Rangers? I wouldn't. I'd go a different direction. I'd probably go with somebody with significant upside. They usually end up going for the typical 5-tool player. There's a couple of shortstops that they are supposedly looking at from what I've seen. All right, but you're asking Yankees and Cubs trade? I mean, what could they even do to trade between the two teams? Cubs looking for starters. Yankees don't really have that to give. I suppose they could do a catcher, but that doesn't really make much sense. Jace is not the best player in the draft. He was supposed to be the best player in the draft and really didn't perform well this spring. Could eventually be, but to me, too many question marks. Especially for as high as the Rangers are drafting. This is going to be one of the few years they have a pick inside the top 15. At least for the next few. I really don't see a trade happening between those two. Now, if we did one separate for each one, Cubs, they have a really strong outfielder out there in Casey. Let's say they're the team that wants to go to the Twins and get Joe Ryan. That's groupthink about Jace? Well, I mean, look at the numbers. Are they what you'd expect before the season began? No, they're beneath what you'd expect. So that's not groupthink. That's proofs in the pudding. You bet Jace falls to the Astros and they take him? I don't think he falls much further past the Rangers. I think he probably falls no further than 17, 18 if I had to guess. I don't think there's that many players that are better than him. Not saying that he's a total dud, but I'm saying that there are other players who the Rangers prioritize in their history. They prioritize guys that are elite toolsy type players, the young shortstops that can play, you start them up the middle and then if they don't work, you can flex them out to the outside, those kinds of things. Who is more depressed value, Sandia or Luis Robert? Robert. Robert has literally no trade value right now. The contract, injury, performance, there's no reason to trade for him. Sandy Alcantara, you can talk yourself into, hey, he was an ace. He still has it in him. Maybe we get him in our system, we figure out what's wrong with him, and we solve him, and he goes forward and performs as an ace. Plus, a starting pitcher generally is considered a little bit more valuable as far as on the open market. And between the two players, Robert was never considered to be on the level of Sandy Alcantara. He reminds me of Adam Dunn. I wouldn't go quite that far. I do like Adam Dunn, but I don't like that comp for him. All right, let's go ahead and do this trade between the Cubs and Twins. All right, Joe Ryan would be the one that goes to the Cubs. Cubs would have to get up a king's ransom to get him, though. I think you'd have to start the deal. Where is he? Okay, there he is. Okay. I think you have to start the deal with Horton as a starting pitcher going back. I think you could probably leave out Brown. I think you put in Rojas in this deal. Casey in this deal as well. To make this more palatable so you don't have to give up so many prospects, I think the Twins could probably throw you a negative contract to make it work a little bit better if Correa is not injured too badly. I think if you get that done, say the Twins throw in, I don't know, 15 mil to help out on the money, and they get out of Correa's future years. Now your value's pretty close. Twins could throw you one other piece, maybe a bullpen arm, a middling bullpen arm. Clemens would be an interesting fit. If they wanted to go for an elite closer, Duran could be the ask. Let's say they do the stack of both. And then you go back to the Cubs just to round out this deal. You put Triantos. I don't know, maybe Wicks. I don't think that'd work, though. Wiggins, no. How close are we with those pieces there? I think that would be very interesting. Convert him to a starter next year? That maybe, but he's still valuable at the back end of a bullpen right now. I think there's... Let's see. Say you didn't put in the 15 mil. Say the Twins, with their ownership issues, decide to only put 10 in this deal. That'd make the deal pretty dang close. You offload the future years of Correa. You lose an ace in Ryan, 2 years of Duran. You get 3 years or 3 postseason runs with Ryan and Duran, and you take on the future money of Correa. Correa basically takes over as your utility player that you're looking for at the deadline. You give up a future number 2-3 type starter in Horton. Casey looks like an immediate plug-and-play starter right now in the big league club for the Twins. Triantos probably takes over at third, and you put Royce Lewis either at short or at DH to keep him healthy, honestly, at this point. And then Rojas gives you an opportunity at shortstop in a few years. Not a bad deal. You're not getting Joe Ryan and keeping Casey. There's no way that's happening in any world with a trade between the Twins and Cubs. In fact, I would argue I'd want him first before I get Horton or Rojas. Casey is just tearing it up in AAA right now. I believe he's hit, 7 home runs in 8 games so far. Wooey, welcome on. Welcome in, welcome in. Your Angels just walked it off. Again, those Angels just will not give up this season. 6-5 winners against the Diamondbacks. I actually kind of like this trade. I think to make it worth it, I think you would have to give up one more piece, low-level cost. Not necessarily low-level, but a lower option. You give up Melendez, another young shortstop. I think this deal would probably get it done. Cubs get 3 postseason runs with Duran, Ryan, get a little bit of cash for this year, and somebody signed long-term if Tucker decides to leave in free agency. Twins get an immediate starter in their outfield right now, which has struggled with availability. Casey immediately plugs and plays. Horton goes into the rotation right now for Ryan, I do believe. And then you got 3 pieces for the future: Triantos, Rojas, and Melendez. Not too bad. Welcome in, Stephen B. Mets just had a big comeback win against the Royals. just pass it now? 8-3. They scored 7 runs in the final 2 innings. I'd say that's a big comeback win. Twins pull it out against the Pirates. The bigger game to me I was watching was for the AL wild card, the Rays and the Red Sox. Red Sox took it again, 5-4. Again, the Rays bullpen coughed it up. That's 2 games in a row now. The Rays have coughed it up in the 8th and 9th inning. Yesterday we talked about how it was to me it was on the team more than it was Brian Baker, who they literally just had walk in to the clubhouse yesterday, and they immediately threw him into a high leverage spot in the late in the game. I thought they should have at least given him a day to get settled in. Instead, they don't, and now they just continue their poor pitching in those tight games late in the game. Anyway, their bullpen is struggling right now, and that's why they made the trade for Baker. I get it, but that was not the time to put him in. Ben Brown, no. I think you're only getting one of those pitchers there. I don't think you're getting both. I think you're getting Horton or Brown. I think you have to choose between the two. I would go Horton. That's not a bad deal, though, if you're the Cubs. Let's do another deal. This time let's do the Detroit Tigers. Nobody's really talking too much about the Tigers because of how well they've performed. All right, Riley Green, McKinstry, Torres, your all-stars anyway. Baez having having a good bounce back year for him. Looking at their pitching is another thing I wanted to do. Let's look at their starters. Oh, it's flipped to the Twins for some reason. There we go. Scuball's been fantastic as expected, but look at Casey Mize, who just got onto the All-Star team. 85 innings, 15 starts, a 2.63 ERA. That's pretty dang good. Nice campaign from a couple of young pitchers. Olson, Job. I believe he's injured right now as well. Keller to the Tigers would be sick. I just don't think Keller's moving. I think that trade, if it does get made, is in the offseason. I think if Pittsburgh sells, which I think they'll sell, their rentals as they usually do, I don't think they're going to be looking for, any of their long-term controllable pieces. Like Bednar would probably be the most likely to go of the long-term pieces there. Dennis Santana in the bullpen. Pham on the offensive side, but they're not moving foundational pieces. They're certainly not moving Skeens. I just doubt they move Keller. If they move Keller, I think that would happen in the offseason, though. I think that trade would be more to their liking as far as the return in the offseason when all teams can bid for a controllable starter like him. Mark, what would Texas have to give up for Bednar and Reynolds? Well, I wouldn't want Reynolds. I like what the Rangers have in the outfield right now without bringing in Reynolds. I don't think he's a big enough upgrade. But to answer your question as far as Bednar, we can do that one. Pirates. Rangers. Bednar's value, 6.1 and a year of control left after this one. Salary's a big consideration here as well. So if Pittsburgh eats, say $2 million of it, I think the Rangers could afford it this season. Then you're talking about a $8 million player. Pirates are looking for offense. To me, I think a good piece for them would be a guy like Osuna, give him an everyday spot in their outfield. And then you kind of round out the deal with a guy like Isaac Tiger, unproven option at the high A, double A level, but has a good track record so far. I think this would be an interesting trade that probably gets across the finish line. I remember in the offseason I said Texas backups trade Nate Lowe to the Tigers for Torkelson and Casey May, and you said he was an overpay. Well, I just don't. Casey Mize has had a great bounce back year. At the time, Casey Mize was fighting for a fifth starter spot before spring training. He's been probably the biggest bounce back candidate, kind of comeback player of the year as far as performance on the field as pretty much anybody. Everybody was knocking the cover off the ball for Casey Mize, and this year he came into I believe it was a 3 or a 4 headed competition for that final starter spot, and he took it. And so far, he's certainly earning it. Maybe the competition spurred something in him, but he's had a nice year. But you can see he's well above his career norms. Started off with a 2 ERA, then back to a 4, down to a 3. He's been fairly consistent this year. That's good. Like you can see his numbers when he came up. This is by far his best season. A 7 ERA as a rookie, of course. Then then a sub 4 ERA. Then his numbers ballooned back up each of the last 2 years. And look at that whip the past 2 years, a 150 and a 147. You look at the whip this year, that's the major difference right there. Strikeout numbers are up. Walks are down a little bit. Well, they're about the same rate anyway. Anthony, I'm reading reports that the Marlins might go under slot at number 7, either trading or drafting Gavin Fine, Ryan Mitchell, Dax Kilby, or Lucas Franco. Honestly, I think that's the best way to go in these MLB drafts is with the slots, with the pool money that's allotted to you. Diversify that a little bit. Get a guy that you really value at, say, pick number 20, if you're picking in the top 5, top 10, that you still really like. Don't just do it for some guy that's would give you a discount on a deal. But if you really like a prospect and he's not necessarily matching up with what a top 5 pick is worth, see if he'll strike a deal with you. The Rangers did that famously when they did the Kumar Rocker deal and Brock Porter. I think they could do something teams like that, should do something like that to kind of, jumpstart their rebuild process. Get themselves 2 bites at the apple instead of 1. Because how often do these minor leaguers, even if they are very good, even if they do get to the major league level, actually hit? Those guys are fewer and farther between. Now, the top end guys, the guys that are drafted usually in the top 10, your make rate on those, your boom or bust rate on those is actually fairly high. I believe it's around a 40-50% success rate on those guys, but still, after that it drops off to 30s and then down into the 10s, and then it drops into nothingness after that. But, I think going into a draft and splitting up your slot value there and drafting 2 valuable assets for what would be considered like borderline first round value or a little bit higher than that, I think it'd be the best way to divvy up your money if you're drafting in the top half of the first round. Now, say you're picking around number 28 or something like that. The drop off to say a low underslot deal, you're probably talking going and getting a second round, mid second round pick and drafting him in your first round, and because you want to save slot value. That I wouldn't do. The difference there in value, I think, is just so far skewed there. You're not getting an adequate player back for the value that you're giving. So I would rather do it if I'm drafting in the top 10, top 15 maybe. But guys drafting outside of that really shouldn't be doing that strategy. They should be taking BPA, best player available, rolling with it, not drafting for need, but draft literally the best player that's available. I don't really like drafting for needs if you're drafting in any league. The only time that really works if you're seen as a championship team, and this is a finishing roster, finishing piece on your team. Now, teams drafting at the back end of the first round and so forth are generally considered contending teams. But in baseball, those guys aren't getting to the big leagues anytime soon. So there's no reason to draft for need in your farm system or need on your major league roster unless you expect that guy to be on your big league roster by the end of the season or within the year after that. And most of the time, the guys drafted in the late first round are not of that caliber. Let's see here. James Toronto straight up for Ryan McMahon for the Cubs. honestly, McMahon's a nice piece, but the only way that makes sense for the Cubs is if the Rockies eat a little bit of money on that one. I just think Triantos has a little bit more value than just eating the money on McMahon and taking back McMahon. Platoon him at third with Shaw. I think there is some thought process that the Cubs would like to platoon Shaw, at least in the second half. Get a veteran presence in there to kind of show him how to win, how to prepare every single day, how to handle the pressure of a pennant race. I think that would be invaluable for the Cubs. Mark, I think it would. I think I would do that Pirates deal for Texas for Bednar. If the Rangers can score 6 again, that should be enough to let them make a run for a playoff spot. Rangers are scoring out the wazoo right now. They need to get a back end of the bullpen guy for me. I'd be looking at the elite guys still. Duran is still my ideal target for the Rangers at the deadline. He's the one I really want. Clase would be great. Duran would be great. But somebody in that caliber, or somebody of that caliber. Now, if they end up getting a guy like, say, Bednar, or a Kenley Jansen, or Ryan Helsley from the Cardinals, those would be nice options. They'd be improvements, absolutely, but they're not of the elite caliber that Clase or Duran are. One other name I'll mention is Aroldis Chapman, and that's only if the Boston Red Sox become sellers. I think his return to Texas would be much welcomed, and I think that would be a great option for them. All right, let me update here. I think my internet just surged. Helsley, I do like Helsley, but to me, the injury, a couple of years ago, the downturn a couple of years ago, those are risks with Helsley. That's why he's not a top 5 closer to me. I would rather have Duran or Clase to me. Would it make sense for Michael, for the Marlins to trade Sandy for a compensation or competitive balance pick? No, honestly, it would not. I would hold on to Alcantara until the offseason. Rehab his value in the second half year. Stop trotting him out there and hoping it gets better every single time he goes out there. How about you skip him a couple of starts, let him get his mechanics back under control because they're all over the place right now, and solve those issues first. Then put him back into games, but manage how he's using his arsenal. If you notice the mechanics getting a little wild, hey, buddy, quick mound visit right now. Your mechanics are getting out of whack. Focus on your mechanics. Don't worry too much about the result on the field because the results will follow. But his mechanics are all over the place, and when he's not repeatable, when he's grooving fastballs, when he's trying to do the get me over thing with a lot of these pitches, and he's middle with every single one of them, missing location even on those pitches, that's when you see red flags for Alcantara. That's why his ERA is over 7. So I think they would be best to hold on to him after the deadline, rehab his value, get it up a little bit in the offseason, then recoup what value you can at that point. If they enter next season with him, I think that would be a little bit of a miss. So I do think they need to trade him, but probably in the offseason if they can rehab his value. Rangers had Clase and traded him. They did for Corey Kluber. Thought process at the time was that he would be a solid ace at the front of that rotation. You could argue that because they traded Emmanuel Clase for Corey Kluber is the reason why the Rangers now have Jacob deGrom. It's the reason they now have Nathan Eovaldi. It's the reason they won the World Series. And the reason I say that is because that was the first time the Rangers really had to prioritize pitching in a big way as far as getting an elite arm in there. Now, of course, Kluber didn't work out through literally one inning before the injury happened, COVID year, all that kind of stuff. Things just didn't work out. They included Delino DeShields Jr. in that deal as well. Great fan favorite player for the Rangers at the time. And Clase was seen as a 7th, 8th inning fireball pitcher who had closer potential. I don't think anybody saw this level of closer in his arsenal, but he certainly has risen to the occasion. Now, the value for Clase I think is around 20-ish, 23 mil, according to BaseballTradeValues.com. I think that's fairly accurate for what I consider to be one of the top 3 closers in the game right now, maybe even number 1, depending on the day, of course. But we'll see. Rangers knew Clase was on steroids. I don't think that was necessarily the case. I think that he had his own demons going on at the time, but Clase is still a very strong candidate to be traded at this year's deadline, whether it be to the Rangers, the Cubs, the Tigers, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Rays. I think he's a good candidate to be traded because there's a lot of teams needing bullpen help, and he's one of the few elite options that are or could be available. I was looking at scouting reports for Thomas White. They're comparing him to Corey Kluber. That'd be an interesting one. Then what's the argument for Cole Ragans and Chapman? Well, Cole Ragans at the time was what, a 5 ERA pitcher as a long reliever. Anytime the Rangers had used him as a starter, it didn't work out. So they were trying to get him to perform as a long reliever first. One could argue, hey, he's a starter, been a starter. Why are you using him as a long reliever? But he had some success in that long relief role, so the Rangers were comfortable using him there. They needed arms in that bullpen for some length, so that's why they were using Cole Ragans in that role. That was the year Dane Dunning, I believe, and him were both used as long relievers early in the year. Ragans' numbers were around 5.5. Dunning was obviously the better of the two. That's why they decided Ragans was the guy that should be shipped out for Aroldis Chapman. And if you're a Royals fan, even the biggest Royals fan you can ever dream of, I don't think anybody saw Cole Ragans as being the ace of their staff. What, a couple of years later? He does have great stuff, don't get me wrong. But he was not pitching to this level. Didn't look like he had this level in him towards the end of his run with the Rangers. Remember, he had been in the Rangers system and on the Major League roster for the better part of 2 years at that point, and it just didn't work. But looks like he found his home in Kansas City, and sometimes they just work out that way. When you get a chance, can you do the MLB pipeline and click on the draft and see what the guys are looking at? Marlins might sign under slot 7. I can look at it real quick. Ethan Holiday. I think he has a great chance to go 1. I think that the debate at 1 is between these two, Anderson or Holiday. As far as the guys around 12 for the Rangers, I know Kyson Witherspoon was one of the names I've seen mentioned. I know JoJo Parker was another one. Kaysen Cunningham was another one the Rangers had been looking at. And I believe Steele Hall was the last one that they were looking at. But they were primarily looking at shortstops. Now, Laviolette, you can see how the group think, as you mentioned, Uncle Ted, there is that they have him around 20. I don't think he falls that far. I think he's still too big of a bat. They're not going to let him fall that far down. The swing decisions are what really worried the scouts the most this year. I think he probably ends up in this 16, 17, 18 range when it's all said and done. That's kind of what I was thinking of before I actually came on live, Heel. Bullying really does work. I talk about trading Langford, and then boom, he has multiple hit games in a row. Since he's come back from injury, he's really starting to hit. In fact, let's kind of look at his numbers real quick just to kind of see the difference. .385 average over the last week. Let me look at the game logs real quick. I mean, he's hitting .385 so far in the month of July. Starts out a little slow, getting back from injury. Has a couple of no burgers, but now he's on, what, a 4-game hitting streak? 3 multi-hit games in the last 4. His third career 4-hit game. He does still have superstar written all over him, but look at that batting average. Wyatt Langford is a significantly better hitter than a .227 hitter, which is what his lowest point was against the Angels a couple weeks ago, or .224 in June. I think his career, he'll probably end up being around a .270, .280 hitter. Home runs, we're probably talking in the 30 home run range. He's probably going to finish in the 25 home runs, 25 stolen base category this year. He's got 3 stolen bases in his last 3 games. Stolen base numbers are coming up now that he's not having to hit in front of Corey Seager, because they don't like to run in front of Corey Seager. He can't hit righties. Well, he did today. Crushed a home run off of one, if I remember correctly. A no-doubter. You think Evan Carter has a bigger career? I doubt that at this point. Carter is starting to hit lefties as well. I wouldn't say he can't hit lefties. But I will say Wyatt Langford has a higher potential than Evan Carter at this point. But Carter is just still so young. We don't really know what his ceiling is. Remember, we entered the season with Wyatt Langford, to me anyway, was borderline the best player on the Rangers team. I was at least thinking that was going to happen by the end of the year. I don't think that's the case anymore. I still think that Corey Seager is far and away the best player the Rangers have offensively. But I still think Wyatt Langford has great potential to possibly be the second best player by the end of the year, even with the struggles he's had so far. So far, so good. Is Wyatt Langford going to have to move to the corner, or do you think he sticks in center in the long run in the majors? He's already in left field. They do deploy him in center when Evan Carter can't play and they have some injury issues, but he's primarily going to be the left fielder. As far as a platoon, he won't be a platoon hitter. He hits both sides fairly equally. Rangers go as Seager goes. To a certain extent, that's what Bochy said the other day as well. You think 1 is Anderson, 2 is Doyle, 3 is Hernandez, and 4 is Holiday? I'm kind of leaning the other direction. Evan Carter for Clase? No, that's an overpay. Carter is 32 mil value. Clase is only 23. No, thank you. At one point, I thought Evan Carter could be Juan Soto-ish. I mean, his nickname was Full Count at one point. That was more of, sensationalizing his run in the postseason with the Rangers. He was really the spark that catapulted a struggling team at that point at the end of September and got the offense finally working again. And yes, he does work the count a little bit, but you can see over the last, 60 games he's played, he's starting to expand the zone a little bit. Needs to fine-tune that approach once again because he's starting to press at times. But he's still one of the more consistent hitters the Rangers have right now. I think his variables in his performance, I think, are better than what Wyatt Langford is right now. As far as the consistency that he brings, he can still hit you, 1 for 4. He's going to have those days where he's going to go 0 for 4. But in general, he's going to hover around a 250, 260 average. I think in good years, he'll probably hit up to 270, 280. In poor years, he might hit 240, 230. But I think that's kind of more the range you're going to have with Evan Carter. Meanwhile, Langford, I think could give you as high as like a 320 year, a really, truly great MVP caliber season. I think the floor for him is probably around the 225 range when he's really struggling. And we've seen that at times this year already, both sides of that coin. But I would say, for me, as far as the draft, how I would picture it going, I think Holiday 1, and then I'd probably say Anderson probably falls a little bit. It sounds like pitching would probably go in that 4, 5, 6 range if I had to guess, but who knows? You never know if somebody's already got a pre-slot deal worked out with the team to save some money and allow them to draft somebody else later on. You never know. But usually at the top, the guys drafted in the 1, 2, 3 range usually aren't subject to those slot deals, but every now and again we'll get one, like a Henry Davis for the Pirates a few years back, or Kumar Rocker for the Rangers just a few years ago as well. But very rarely do you see it. Michael, I'll give you 3 closers in their prime. You have to choose and put them back of your bullpen right now. Who would you choose? Ooh. Armando Alfonseca, I remember him. John Rocker, I remember him. Blake Tran, Rocker with the Braves was good, but every now and again he'd get into trouble. Alfonseca, he was a good closer, but he wasn't great. Prime John Rocker, though, could really put away a team. He was prone to the blow-up every 10, 11 saves or so. But I'd say John Rocker had a better peak. John Wetland kind of fits that same bill. Their peak was really strong. Now, if I was just picking from past Rangers closers, give me Joe Nathan all day long. Consistent as the day is long, my friend. I mean, we haven't had a closer in Texas like him since he left. We really haven't. You're talking guys like Sam Dyson. Who else are we talking about here? We're talking Sean Tollison. We're talking, I don't even remember who was it last year. Leclerc at times. Aroldis Chapman at times. Spores got the last out of World Series, but he was never really considered a closer. Keone Kela for a period of time. Give me Joe Nathan all day long. I'm not doubting Wetland was better. I'm just saying that for me, Rocker had the better peak. As a Padres fan, you have to pick Hoffman. Well, yeah, Hall of Famer. Do you feel people overrated Trevor Hoffman a little bit because of the amount of saves he has and he wasn't as consistent as people thought? No, I think that the ability to get the save period is invaluable. Kirby Yates was great. Forgot about him last year. But again, that was more 1 year. I would rather have the consistency of Joe Nathan. He just knew how to get those outs. I just kind of make me want to look him up now. Rookie Neftali was hot. Yeah, he was pretty dang good. I remember Joe Nathan as a Twins fan. He was great there. 377 saves. He would be the one I'd go for. Yeah, John Rocker was not a good person and still is not a good person. Look at the years he had with Texas. 12 and 13. Mr. Consistency. Was the closer the Detroit Tigers had when Verlander was there? Fernando Rodney? He was good for a period of time. I was genuinely impressed that Leiter was able to keep Altuve off the bases. I mean, he was a rookie versus a future Hall of Famer, and he showed he can develop into a second, maybe even ace one day. I mean, that was the trajectory when it was drafted. I don't think there's still the ace on the table. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but I don't think it's something that they're shooting for right now. If you're a realistic, front office executive for the Rangers, I think you look at Ted. You're just doing that because of the Twins thing. Griffin Jax is not Joe Nathan. Joe Nathan today is probably. I don't think there is a closer in the game that really reminds me of Joe Nathan. There's not a closer. No, there's nobody in the game really that kind of reminds me of him. Hader, but no, not Hader. That's still not even close. Munoz to a certain degree, but even then, still no. But as far as Leiter goes, I think he's pretty solidly a 3 in a good rotation right now. Once he, of course, gets past the rookie stuff and gets to where he's going to go. I think he has the ability to become a 2 relatively quickly. I'd say within probably 2 years, Leiter could be viewed as a number 2 in a rotation. Could we see a trajectory like Joe Ryan, where this year Joe Ryan's pitching to a 2.76 ERA? There are times that Leiter looks like a number 1. There are times he looks like a number 5. But just seeing where his consistency ultimately ends up at, I think is where I think that's obviously how we'll view Leiter. But for me, Leiter is more of a 2-3 most likely, but not out of the realm of possibility he could develop into a 1. You think he's Sonny Gray? That's a good comp. I think that's fairly accurate. To me, I view Sonny Gray as more of an elite number 2 right now. And for the majority of his career, there was a period of time where he was an ace, Cy Young type of a pitcher for about 2, maybe 3 years. And then the rest of the years, he has been mostly a 2-3 starter for the majority of his career. When you get a chance, can you look up those guys I mentioned are going to be under slot for Miami at number 7 in the draft on Sunday? I mean, I think if you're looking at number 7, I still would go for young position players first and foremost. So I'd be looking at guys like Hall, Pierce. I'd be looking at, I probably wouldn't do Schoolcraft because he's a pitcher. But I think if you could get them as an underslot deal, even if it's only by a couple $100,000, $500,000 or something like that, say you do a sweetheart deal with Daniel Pierce, I think that could be something they do. Because you don't lose too much value. I don't think you go all the way down here. For instance, like a Gavin Fiend, I don't think you go that far down to get an underslot value guy. Suarez, that would be a good comp, I think, for Nathan. That's not bad. Still not necessarily close, but I think it's not bad. Lighter similarly is Sonny Gray and Roy Oswalt is the ceiling. I could do that one. That's fairly close. I think I view Gray and Roy Oswalt very similarly as far as pitchers. Is there a young starter that you feel is the closest thing to Josh Beckett when he was in Miami? Ooh, good question. Beckett was pretty dang good when he was in Miami when he first came up. I would probably say everybody's flavor of the month is The Miz from Milwaukee, but I don't think that's accurate. Who's got a couple of years on him? Logan Gilbert possibly, but he has more fire than Gilbert. George Kirby possibly, but the body type isn't quite there. Hunter Brown. Although I think Hunter Brown's stuff is a little bit better. That'd be a pretty close comparison. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be live tomorrow night. We'll be doing one of two games. We'll be doing either the Rangers and Astros as the 6:30 game, or we'll do the nightcap, Toronto versus the A's. We'll probably do the Rangers and Astros, and we'll do a lot of trade talk during the live. And then remember, on Sunday evening, after the games have gone final, tune it in here to the Upside. We're going to do a lot of trade talk. We're going to do some MLB draft stuff. We're going to get into all the latest going into the All-Star break. And of course, we're going to do our updated MLB power rankings. We decided to postpone them till the end of the first half before the All-Star break, or till the All-Star break anyway, and kind of see where teams stack up, at the halfway mark of the season, and see which teams ultimately have a chance to make the postseason. We'll do a prediction show early part of next week during the All-Star break, and kind of let you guys know, where we believe teams will ultimately finish. Even after the trade deadline, even after they make their acquisitions, where they'll ultimately fall. So be sure to follow us here at the Upside. Hit that like button at the bottom of the page. It goes a long way to helping us out. The really interactive chat. Thank you guys for joining us this evening. Cobra, welcome back as well. But had a lot of fun chatting with you guys the last few nights. But make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. We posted 3 videos today. I invite you guys to check those out on our page. So if you haven't checked them out already, I believe we did one about Joe Ryan's possibility of being traded. The Red Sox were mentioned as the possibility, according to John Paul Morosi, with Duran possibly being the centerpiece going back the other direction. One about Josh Naylor as well. And, we'll have to see how this deadline ultimately unfolds. We'll have some more videos coming out tomorrow as well. But we'll see you guys again tomorrow night, probably for that Rangers and Astros game. Last couple of comments here. The guy I think is closest to Josh Beckett is Logan Gilbert from Seattle. That was kind of one of the guys I was thinking, but Gilbert's just too quiet to me. Beckett, I think, had a little bit more animus to him. Do you think the Rangers will just have Josh Young play first next season? No, I don't. I think he plays a good enough, pretty solid third base, actually. There's no need to move him off of third unless you bring in another player like an Alex Bregman in the offseason, which I doubt. But I think Young will primarily stay at third base. Zach Gallen is the biggest starting pitcher name moved. I think so. I think it's going to be in that category, but I think there isn't. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Alcantara is moved. Although I would hold on to him until after the season and see if I could get a rehabbed value on Sandy Alcantara and see if I could get a little bit more with the rest of the league interested in not just the contending teams. All right. Thank you guys. Stay safe out there. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night.